What's good, fight fans? Welcome back to the channel. We just witnessed one of the biggest upsets of the year as Dalton Smith shocked the world by knocking out Subriel Matias and capturing the WBC Junior welterweight title in New York. The so-called boogeyman just got stopped, the hype train got derailed, and British boxing has a new world champion. I've got a lot to say about this fight, the tactics, the turning point, what went wrong for Matias, and what this win means for Smith's future. So let's get straight into my full reaction to Subriel Matias versus Dalton Smith. Dalton Smith promised all week that he would take Subriel Matias's WBC Junior welterweight title. On Saturday night, he delivered in spectacular fashion. The unbeaten English contender produced the performance of his career, scoring a shocking fifth-round knockout of the feared Puerto Rican puncher at Barclays Center in Brooklyn to become a first-time world champion. Round 1, Smith sets the tone. Smith burst from his corner with confidence, boxing beautifully on the outside. He snapped crisp jabs to head and body, circling away from Matias's power and forcing the champion to reset again and again. Matias, 23-3, 22 KOs, a notoriously slow starter, struggled to find his rhythm as Smith banked the opening round with speed and precision. Smith showed no signs of intimidation against one of boxing's most dangerous pressure fighters. From the opening bell, he stood his ground, trading in the pocket and matching Matias's intensity. When the champion began to build momentum and apply his trademark pressure, Smith stayed composed and waited for his moment. Round 2. The fight ignites. The second round turned into a firefight. Smith continued to box but began to stand his ground in spurts, trading with the Puerto Rican puncher. The pro-Matias crowd roared as the champion landed short, compact shots on the inside. But Smith's bravado was rewarded with looping overhand lefts and rights, and by the end of the round, blood was flowing from Matias's nose. In the first 2 rounds, Smith boxed beautifully and, in my opinion, clearly won both. He used his movement well, picked his shots, and never allowed Matias to settle. But as the fight went on, Matias began to find his rhythm. He started landing his short, compact punches, and the pace looked like it was beginning to take its toll on Smith. Rounds 3 and 4, tension builds. Sensing the danger, Smith smartly diffused the brawl in the 3rd and 4th rounds. He jabbed, moved, and when Matias tried to close the distance, Smith tied him up, refusing to let the champion get into a rhythm. Smith showed real heart and intelligence. He realized he wasn't going to box Matias for 12 rounds, and instead of running, he chose to fight fire with fire. He stood his ground, traded with the so-called boogeyman. Still, the action never slowed. At the end of the 4th round, both men unloaded along the ropes in a ferocious exchange. Even after the bell rang, they continued throwing punches until referee Ricky Gonzalez physically forced them back to their corners. Smith had developed a cut over his left eye, ruled from a headbutt, and blood streamed down his face. Matias began to find moments of success at ring center, firing a 5-punch combination that briefly stunned the challenger. The tide appeared to be turning. Round 5. The career-defining moment. Then came the moment that will define Dalton Smith's career. With his mouth wide open, Smith bit down on his gum shield and surged forward. With Matias pressing forward, Smith unleashed a perfectly timed right hand that landed flush and sent the champion crashing to the canvas. Matias crawled to his feet, but his legs betrayed him. He staggered into the ropes, insisting he could continue, but referee Ricky Gonzalez had seen enough, sealing another world champion from the United Kingdom. Dalton Smith didn't just beat Subriel Matias, he outthought him, outfought him, and ultimately knocked him out on one of boxing's biggest stages. From the opening bell, Smith made it clear he had come to execute a plan, not survive one. Seconds later, the fight was waved off at 2:24 of the 5th round. Dalton Smith was a world champion. A star is born. Smith, 19-0, 14 KOs, from Sheffield, England, dropped to his knees in disbelief as his trainer and father, Grant Smith, rushed into the ring in celebration. Ticket sales were reportedly modest, but the atmosphere was anything but. New York's large Puerto Rican community had turned the night into a home fight for Matias, who looked so relaxed during his ring walk that he stopped for selfies with family members. Yet none of it mattered once the bell rang. With the victory, Smith becomes one of Britain's 5 current male world champions and instantly announces himself as a major force in one of boxing's deepest divisions. On a night when many expected Subriel Matias to roll on, Dalton Smith arrived as a world champion and a star. Promoter Eddie Hearn sprinted into the ring and wrapped Dalton Smith in a bear hug as the new champion stood overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. Smith had won his first world title, but perhaps the greater achievement was something no one before him had managed. He became the first fighter ever to drop and stop Subriel Matias, the division's most feared puncher, and did it while forcing the champion to swallow every word of his pre-fight bravado. For years, Matias had built a reputation as an unstoppable force. On this night, Smith shattered that aura. "It was the first time in my career I was the underdog," said Smith, 28, moments after the stoppage. "Everyone said I was fighting a monster. But when you put me in there with a monster, you don't bring the little girl out of me. You bring the monster out of me. Bring on the challengers. I'm a world champion now. I am one of the best." I've never rated Smith particularly highly, but it's always been clear that he can punch. And when you're a fighter who defends with your face, sooner or later you're going to get caught, especially against someone with real power. What happened to Matias felt inevitable. People were calling Matias the boogeyman and even the best fighter in the division, but I never bought into that hype. If you really break it down, this was the first time he'd fought a puncher like Smith. Standing in front of him and eating that many shots was always a dangerous game, and eventually it cost him. Credit has to go to Dalton Smith. He could have easily pulled out of the fight. Instead, he went into away territory against all the odds and knocked out a feared champion in front of his own crowd. That takes courage, belief, and real fighting spirit. He proved a lot of people wrong, including me. It marked the second short-lived reign at 140 pounds for Subriel Matias. The Puerto Rican puncher had already lost the IBF title to Liam Parrow in 2024 after just one successful defense, and now his WBC crown has followed the same fate. After the victory, an emotional Smith, now 19-0, 14 KOs, handed the WBC title to his father and trainer, Grant Smith, inside the ring. A powerful moment that underlined just how far their journey together had taken them. Before the fight, Hearn had ominously declared that justice shall be served, a remark widely interpreted as a reference to Matias's previous adverse drug test findings. Now, the division has a new champion and a new force to reckon with. Now the focus shifts to what comes next in one of boxing's most stacked divisions. The most likely next step for Smith is a mandatory defense against former champion Alberto Puello. In my opinion, Puello arguably edged his fight with Matias and was unlucky not to get the decision, so he deserves another title shot. A rematch with Smith at Sheffield Wednesday's Hillsborough Stadium would make sense, though it's not the most exciting matchup. A far more thrilling option, albeit unlikely, would be a domestic blockbuster against Adam Azim. Smith versus Azim would sell out arenas, generate massive attention, and set British boxing alight. This feels like the perfect moment to make that fight, and arguably Azim's best opportunity to win a world title, though it would be a huge test, especially with a tough assignment against Gustavo Lemos coming next. Unification bouts would also be appealing, but they appear difficult to secure in the short term. Hitchens is making a voluntary defense against Duarte and is expected to be mandated against Delgado. Russell is awaiting the long-delayed showdown with Andy Hirioka, while Lopez and Stevenson headline one of the biggest fights of the year. Still, Smith now sits at the top table. Whether it's Puello, Azim, a unification, or a mega fight against Lopez or Stevenson, Dalton Smith has arrived. And the junior welterweight division just became even more compelling. That's my breakdown of an unbelievable night at Barclays Center. Dalton Smith went into enemy territory, fought a feared champion on his own terms, and walked out a world champion. Massive respect. Let me know what you thought of the fight in the comments. Did Smith prove he belongs at the top of the division? And where does Matias go from here? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Plenty more boxing content on the way.